Our speaker today is Susan Thomas. On composing this introduction for Susan, the first thing that popped into my mind was a Bible verse. And there were also so many other things that Jesus did, which if they should all be written down, the world itself would not contain all the books that should be written. Well, anyone who attempts to describe Susan with any degree of brevity will encounter a similar problem. Susan is the longest continuously active member of the fellowship. Fellowship was founded in 1972. She joined in 1975. Susan currently serves as office manager and minister, and describing the duties of the office manager is another one of those issues. No list would ever be long enough to include them all. She's the coordinator and scheduler of everything. She's also the editor of the newsletter. And when I say editor, I really mean researcher, reporter, columnist, typesetter, layout designer, copy editor, and proofreader. Moving outside the fellowship, the main theme of her life is music. She played violin in the Virginia Symphony for 14 years. She holds an academic degree in music, and she teaches violin, viola, cello, piano, and voice. Interestingly, Susan tends to get unusual music students, either musical prodigies that need special instruction, or students with special needs who need special understanding and communication. The Mo'o people of Hawaii described the white explorers and missionaries as those who do not breathe their prayers. Well, no matter how busy Susan gets, she always breathes her prayers and lives them. Please welcome our own Susan Thomas.
I wasn't sure who he was talking about. You know that's how it works when people introduce you. Oh my goodness. Let me move my stuff here. Move that off of there. There we go. Well, good morning, everybody. And happy Labor Day weekend. Happy Labor Day. I have thought about the subject I'm going to share today for a while, and then a couple of people said to me, do you think you could talk a little bit about something that has to do with Labor Day, or with our work and play balance, our active and inactive balance in our lives? So I need to hear every word of this that I'm going to share with you about my thoughts on the subject and some other people's thoughts on the subject. Because welcome to the earth, it's not always easy here, is it? Even if we don't intend to, we tend to get super busy and sometimes overwhelmed. So we work hard really to get a balance between the quiet times, the active times, the play times, and the work times, and the employment times, and the working in the home. It's a challenge at times, and sometimes it flows, sometimes it doesn't. But it helps to know in a way that we're all ground crew here, we're all in the same boat, and probably everything I share will be something I've been through or that you've been through or will be going through. So I wanted to start with just a couple of quotes that were not added to the bulletin. And I was just inspired yesterday by thinking about our dear Marty Shelton and also the musician-composer Stephen Sondheim, both of whom are on the other side of the veil now. Well, Stephen Sondheim said, when the audience comes in, it changes the temperature of what you've written. The same is true, the congregation comes in. And I want to acknowledge and recognize that each of you has brought your beingness here, your consciousness, your soul. And the gathering of such souls creates a vortex of energy that makes it possible for somebody to speak and share, or somebody to play a piano or a violin or sing. It helps give the strength for those people to have it come in them and through them and as them. Because we're all gathered here to commune, to inspire, and to be inspired. So thank you for your beingness, and thank you for your doing of coming here today. A couple of other, some of them funny quotes that I'll put out there are one from Dolly Parton. She said, "Never get so busy making a living, you forget to make a life." Anybody relate to that? There are those times, aren't there? And a lady named Dominique Anderson said, "If you don't have time for a break, you definitely need a break." So take that as a symptom, a clue. And then somebody asked, "Teacher, is there any difference between work and play? Or is there a way it can join?" And this person, was an interesting quote from L.P. Jacks says, "A master in the art of living draws no sharp distinction between his work and his play, his labor and his leisure, his mind and his body, his education and his recreation. He hardly knows which is which." Sounds like an ideal way to be, doesn't it? We could all have moments like that, perhaps. So this work-life balance can mean different things for everyone, but reaching balance involves prioritizing the important aspects of your life at work and at home. A lady named Diane Ackerman said, "Remember how important it is to play. Play is our brain's favorite way of learning." So let me repeat that one. Play is our brain's favorite way of learning. If you watch toddlers, little kids, how do they learn? How did we learn? We need to be sure we're still playing. Let's talk a moment about the history of Labor Day. A lot of people don't really know that. We're just so used to having it, and kind of marks the end of summer, the start of school. We tend to associate it that way. Well, in the United States, a man named Peter McGuire was a union leader. He founded the United Brotherhood of Carpenters in 1881, and he's generally given credit for the idea of Labor Day. In 1882, he suggested to the Central Labor Union of New York that there be a celebration among American workers. So the origins of Labor Day goes back to the late 19th century when the activists first sought to establish a day that would pay tribute to the workers. The first U.S. Labor Day celebration happened in New York City on September 5th, 1882. So it's been around a while. And there was no particular significance to that date. McGuire said it was chosen because it fell roughly between 4th of July and Thanksgiving. And they didn't want to have it right on top of another big holiday. And in 1884, the Knights of Labor adopted a resolution that the first Monday in September would always be considered Labor Day. So, at this time of Labor Day, as I mentioned, I thought it would be good to reflect upon our relationship with work and labor. It would be a good time to think about our work and play balance. It's a good time to ask ourselves if we have a good balance in active and inactive time. Do we ask ourselves these questions? Do we rest enough? Do we have recreation enough? Do we have quiet time enough? Are we spending both quality and quantity time with our loved ones at home? And are there ways we could address the challenge on this earth in our lives to make it more balanced? There was an indigenous man named Mokokomo that said the wise rest at least as hard as they work. A very wise statement, often forgotten. I think it's good to remind ourselves that in the earth, probably the whole earth, and certainly in the Western society, people tend to attach their identity or their self-worth to what their employment is, or their financial status, or what kind of job they have. But let's start by realizing that our job is not who we are. Our employment is not who we are, not the salary, not the title, not our education, our volunteer positions, ministries, or any earthly situation. We are worthwhile because we are sparks of God, equally loved by our Creator. We're all worthwhile. And when we identify with our true identity, we're more effective in everything we do and in all of our work, and we're happier. We need to remember that we are human beings, not human doings, except maybe John over there. I had to say that. That man worked hard out in that field, didn't you? Yeah. And we can put our beingness into whatever endeavor we have and produce incredible results. That would be the ideal marriage. And examine why are we doing it. And there are people that tend to put labels on their own self according to what activity they're in. I think it would help all of us to realize that you're equally valuable whether you're asleep, awake, working, playing, praying, meditating, singing, playing an instrument, cleaning house, homemaking, caring for children or the elderly, or just sitting on a log. God didn't make any junk. I think we need to stop dissecting so many things and making competitions for ourselves, trying to grade ourselves. Like somehow God's looking at us and going, if you do this, this, and this, I'll approve of you. I don't think really that's not the God we want to worship. I don't believe that's what God does. We do that to ourselves. And we always grow spiritually. There is no end goal. Isn't that exciting? Think about it. Wherever you are now gives you a place to go out from, and it keeps growing and it keeps expressing forever. And of course, forever is a hard concept for our finite brains, but we kind of grok it. You know, it's a forever process. So I believe that everything we do is spiritual because we are spirit. And the spiritual tools that we learn about help us to realize this. Now, there's, of course, times, and I know everybody in this room has done this, where you are called to go the extra mile. Anybody not ever go the extra mile? Raise your hand. I don't see any hands up. Okay, sometimes that's obviously appropriate. Important situations and emergency situations happen, and we rise to the occasion and we take care of it. And we just keep going, and then hopefully grab some rest later. I mean, that is part of planet Earth life. There's going to be stuff that happens either due to Mother Nature or mankind situations. But what does not work, and this would be true in the armed forces as well, even in war situations, it doesn't work to stay on the front lines. It's not healthy to always be there and to always go the extra miles. Think about when you're in an airplane, you have to take the oxygen first before you can help someone else. And the people I know in this room are all the caretaker types, and we will go the extra mile. But by golly, you need to get that oxygen that drops down for you, right? God gave you oxygen to breathe. So obviously, when we have just been in a position to take care of a great deal, we just need to do our best to make the time to rest, whether it's temporarily a little cat nap or finally there's a day to do something different. You know, we can all get creative in how we have to make that happen. We all need some kind of downtime to recharge our batteries. So we're all in the same school here on planet Earth, just taking some different courses at different times, but we're all in that one where as adults, we had to make a living and make a life. And that, anybody here relate to, I mean, that's a challenge sometimes, obviously. Sometimes you get to have the job that you really love, that you feel called to do and you have talents for. Sometimes you have to temporarily take another one just because people have to have the rent. You know, you have to do what you do. And there are some situations where if you just bring your own beingness into it, then you can still have joy. And still look for something else, you know, and ask for help with that. But only we can take ourselves off the treadmill. There seems to be one sitting there, and we've all jumped on it sometimes. Like, wow, this is cool. Look how many hours I can go, right? Well, I don't think you would want to do that to your best friend. So let's not do it to ourselves unnecessarily, Take ourselves off the treadmill. One thing I think we all need to claim is it's our birthright to be happy and to contribute with our beingness, our doingness, our work and our play in some kind of way to contribute to ourselves and others for happiness. I like what John Lennon said. Some of you may have heard this before. He directly said this, John Lennon. When I was 5 years old, my mother always told me that happiness was the key to life. When I went to school, they asked me what I wanted to be when I grew up. I wrote down happy. They told me I didn't understand the assignment. And I told the teacher, I don't think you understand life. That's pretty good, isn't it? From the mouths of babes. I like that one. I like that one a lot. So he certainly is reminding us of such a thing. So, of course, being happy, we still need to process and release and acknowledge things like sadness and grief and any negative emotion. And to use computer language today, we could just say happiness can be set as our default position, right? So we always return to center, return to joy, return to happiness. It's not always ha-ha happy. Sometimes it's a quiet happy, but a peace that comes. I like what it said in the Bible, the peace that passes all understanding. There's a deep happiness there. And I think our Creator wants us to have joy and peace and express love to ourselves and others. So we all have employment or homemaking or other callings and hobbies and talents. And sometimes we just have something that shows up right in front of us, the mop and the bucket story, whoops. Looks like something needs done. So if we can do it, what a wonderful thing that is. All work is valuable that needs to be done. All work has integrity that helps. Okay? And I like recognizing all work is equally valuable. I have heard people through my life criticize people and talk down about them because they do manual labor. I've heard manual labor people put down ones sitting at desks. But it takes all of us. It takes the whole village with different skills, different work. And I just appreciate and want to live in a spirit of gratitude to everyone for what they do. And that just opens up so many things when we, say something nice to the tired clerk at the grocery store or whatever. Every job is valuable and every person is valuable. Now, one thing, maybe everyone in this room has done this, is we tend to beat ourselves up if we can't finish a task, or why did I put it off for so long, or we didn't do it to our own satisfaction. Anybody relate to that? We wish we could have done it better. Well, taking healthy pride in your work, I think, is a very positive thing. But if something doesn't work in our lives or the work that we're doing, we just have to go back to the drawing board, that's all. Nothing ventured, nothing gained. So-called mistakes can be stepping stones to magnificent work. Writers toss papers while they're writing. No, I don't want that. And then they finally get it. Music composers change notes. Inventors will talk about, we did 50 experiments that didn't work. Finally, it did. So perseverance helps, doesn't it, when you're working? And just having faith that something will work out for the good. And then the magic happens. So, we certainly all in this room know that we're all sparks of God, and we emanate, all of us, from an all-powerful love. So it's a daily thing. We breathe air every day. We did it already and we don't do it anymore. We need to eat every day normally. So every day we need to remind ourselves, especially when we don't feel that way, that we are loved and loving and worthy, and we're in this earthly school to learn and love more. And we're here to work together and play together and lift each other's loads and appreciate the work and the play and put joy and beingness into our work. I'm going to hand out some cool sheets for you to take home. Let's see, James, do you mind handing these out? I've got something I learned from Denmark that we're going to share. I'm going to share, but just so that everybody has a sheet. I think I have more than enough here. Here you go. Yeah. These are some sheets that you can choose to take home if you want and reflect upon, write something on, and you'll hear what it is in just a minute. But let him go ahead and hand some out for everybody. I'll start talking about it. All right, in Denmark, they have a system, and the closest we can pronounce it, like the Danish do, is hygge. It's spelled Hygge. A lot of English people look at it and think it's hygge, but I found out it's hygge. So, what does hygge mean? Hygge is very Danish. It illuminates the Danish soul. It means creating a warm atmosphere and enjoying the good things in life with good people. There are many applications of hygge. The warm glow of candlelight would be hygge. Cozying up with a loved one watching a movie is hygge. Celebrating the small joys of life, or maybe discussing deeper topics with each other, is hygge. It's an opportunity to unwind and take things more slowly. It's about taking time away from the daily rush to be together with people you care about, or even just yourself, to relax and enjoy life's quieter pleasures. And because there's this giant treadmill in the West, I think we could all benefit from what they have to say about this. Now, this word hygge comes from a 16th century Norwegian term, and it's spelled Hugga. And it means to comfort or console, and it's related to our English word hug, H-U-G. Doesn't that make sense? So when you're hugging somebody, when it's a mutual benefit thing, then that's hygge. Comes from the same root of what people recognize works, an exchange of energy. It's associated with relaxation and gratitude. It's long been considered a part of the Danish national character. And it can be traced back to the Middle Ages, where a similar Old Norse word meant protected from the outside world. So it kind of goes back to your home as your temple. It's where you go within and where you regroup and you recharge your batteries and you have communion with your loved ones. And a hug comes right out of that hygge. And they suggest in Denmark, when they describe it, that it's best enjoyed with small groups of friends and family. And choose people you trust and are comfortable around, because this is a time of comfort, security, confidentiality sometimes, and intimacy. So you want to surround yourself with the people to hang out with that bring out those qualities. You can love all of mankind, but you can't, have them all for roommates. You can't all be with all of them all the time. Okay, so it's forming your family, whether it's a family of friends, your family of mother, father, child, or what, but honoring that time. Denmark's known for social equality and community spirit with common responsibility for social welfare. And there are many individuals that live everywhere who believe in that way of life and contribute to it, wherever they live, however they can. Now, on your sheet, it tells you have 10 principles of hygge. And for good health and to contribute it to the happiness for yourself and others, it's good to incorporate these principles into your life consciously. Instead of prioritizing, I found this interesting, what is in your schedule, consider focusing on scheduling your priorities. Interesting little shift, isn't it? Because, of course, if we have a schedule, that's what we do. But did we consider scheduling our priorities? So I'm just going to briefly mention these because you can ponder them later yourself. Everyone in here has done something on one of these before and it worked. But as you look at it, you might think, well, I need to do more of this one, or I need to do more of that one, and that might bring me a lot of balance, a lot of happiness and relaxation. But the first one is all about atmosphere, creating a healthy and a happy atmosphere in your home or in your workplace, your office, your church, your temple, creating an atmosphere that's inviting and warm and safe, where there's the hospitality of spirit, that people can come in and sup together. And they mentioned presence as the second one on your sheet. That's simply about slowing down and being present in the now and enjoying the moment. And pleasure, you can feel that in yourself. Some people like a walk in the forest, or sit and have a cup of tea by the fireplace, whatever is going to pleasure you at that time, your spirit. Equality is important. It's the next one, that all people are equally important, and we want to respect and have gratitude for them and help them to feel welcome in our sphere of our vortex. And gratitude's an obvious one that comes after that. Spirit of gratitude changes everything. Harmony, doing what you can to prevent fires and to put them out and have some harmony in the workplace or the home or the church or the school. And comfort, whatever's comforting. An elderly person needs a plump chair and you have one. Be sure that you show them that chair. You know, it's like we want to give comfort to each other and ourselves. And then the last, they have three more. Truce would be sometimes you can't solve something right away, but you can agree to disagree. So you just have a truce. We're not going to argue anymore today. We're just going to table this one, come back to it, and be together and enjoy each other's company. So there's an art to that. And you can use all kinds of spiritual tools to help you with that, of course, and to finally resolve that situation. And then they list togetherness. We need solitude sometimes, but we need each other also. And that's recognized in the system of hygge. And shelter. Helping other people to have shelter who might not have it. And being glad that we do have it. And making it the best possible shelter we can have. Simply celebrating the small joys of life. Or discussing deeper topics with each other because you have hygge and you trust. You have trust. And you can unwind, slow down, and talk about what you really would like to share with each other. So this was born out of integrity, transparency, and a healthy respect for privacy. So that's something to be looked at, and you're already doing some of it, but in this form like that, I found it really helpful as I examined where I need to do more of something and could do something, maybe another application of it or a new way. And it just keeps everything feeling very happy and healthy. So right now, what I'm going to do is just give a little summation, and then we're going to hear an excerpt of a Paul Solomon reading and have a little ending prayer. So we all know there's healthy ways to relate to being and doing. There are also pathologies to how people relate to being and doing. Here's some examples of the pathologies. Some people feel they must always be doing something, or they think of themselves as lazy or not worthwhile. Somehow they think God or another person won't like them, won't approve of them, and they feel guilty if they're not active. So even though the work might be good work to do, they're doing too much. And it could be spread out differently. Some people are afraid of stillness. I've known people like that were afraid of stillness, of resting, of taking time to reflect. They're afraid to be alone with their feelings and concerns. So they surround themselves with frenetic overaction and work to distract themselves from their lives. Some of them become adrenaline junkies in an unhealthy way. And eventually the stress just causes more unhappiness and ill health. People can do good work. It's still good work. It still did some good, but for the wrong reasons, which becomes detrimental to that person when it's out of balance. And they don't even realize consciously they felt, even though they truly want to do it, they felt obligated as opposed to they really chose to in balance with what else they were doing. So it's always something to be examined, and sometimes we get it, sometimes we don't. And I found this one interesting. I heard Paul Solomon talk about it, and I heard Rabbi Gilberman talk about it. A person can actually become addicted to what they are calling spiritual growth. I'm going to repeat that one because it sounds like, how can that be a bad thing? How can it be an addiction, right? A person can actually become addicted to spiritual growth. By that, it's meant that some people think that spiritual is only when they're meditating, only when they're praying, and only when they're doing their tools and writing in their journals and stuff. All good activities that point the way and bless all of us. But they think that that's spiritual and the rest of it's not. And I must do that 90% of the time. I mean, push themselves and not see what's in front of them. And they feel like they can't function without it and have a real serious problem if anyone interrupts it. They do this to the exclusion of participating in life. There are stories of people who were so bent on getting to a place on time to see a teacher or a guru that they did not notice a man lying in the street or an old lady who couldn't open a door. So again, it's the being and the doing, a pathology there. That they become addicted to, well, I can only do this. But they haven't brought their beingness into their doing. And it comes from a spark of something positive because they're drawn to the light and they're trying it out. They're just at a stage, perhaps. And then they realize one day, oh, well, my meditation helped me realize I could do this. My prayer helped me realize I could do this, or notice this, or pick up the mop and bucket. So that's an interesting one. And I think people who do that to the extreme are really so unsure of themselves that they feel they must, get a good grade with the teacher in school by, I did this, 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 and this, and this, instead of letting it be a natural part of their lives. And some days you're going to have a good quiet time or a retreat for a month. That's all wonderful. But to depend on it from an addiction psyche doesn't work, or it doesn't allow it to be as effective. So something for us all to think about, like when we choose to do something. There's a balance to all the perceptions, and both doing and being that cause no harm are all spiritual and contribute to life and happiness and love. So our trick would be not to worship the tools, but to know they are sacred and invite them into our lives and use the tools that we've been given. Okay, but not to worship the tool itself or make other people wrong for not using the same tool that we use. Different tools work perhaps for different people. It's not a one-size-fits-all in interfaith or religions or anything. There's something, we just don't want to make a dogma out of something wonderful. It's wonderful, and we don't need to make it a dogma to make it last, to protect it. So different tools work for different people and different works chosen, and we all live in various circumstances, and we just need to remember all of our work is valuable. Thank yourself. Thank others for their work. And be thankful for those quiet times that we need And those reflective inner times of examining ourselves, using our tools, our meditations, all of that. Something for us to all think about every day. And it doesn't mean you do the same thing every day either. One day may be a real active day, and the next day is less active. It's an overall balance. And I'm a double Libra with if you know astrology, I've got 4 planets in the first house. It's all about balance. So balancing act constantly. The boat's going this way, that way, whoops. But it's not always a thing in the middle. Sometimes we need to be over here, sometimes we need to be over here. But it balances. The seesaw will balance. All right, I'm going to just hit that gong and invite you to close your eyes for a moment as you hear what Paul Solomon says about what real success is. And I think some of you have heard this before. Sarah, put this in our songbooks, actually. And so I'm going to read this and do a closing prayer, and we can all just I invite you, while your eyes are closed and you're relaxed, just say thank you to yourself for being. Say thank you to yourself for when you're doing. Say thank you to yourself for every job you've ever done of any kind, whether it ended well or not. Say thank you for your effort. Forgive yourself for if you feel you failed at any of these things. And say thank you to others that come to mind for the work that they do that enhances life and enhances your life. This is from Paul Solomon reading number 75. Do not be influenced by that which men count as valuable or successful or as achievement. That person is successful who causes happiness, who causes pleasure and a reflection of the divine in the lives of those he touches. There are those on your plane who will make a great mark in history and become known. There are those who will develop talents and abilities recognizable to others on your plane, and yet not a shred of evidence of that accomplishment will be found on these records of karma and soul growth. For it is not that which men recognize as accomplishment that is recorded here or set down as achievement of a soul, but that one that causes the son or daughter, the husband, the wife, the neighbor to have a little more light, a little more pleasure, love, energy, happiness with which to accomplish his day-to-day living. He has lifted himself and the entire race a little closer to God. A little closer to God. Source of our being, love, all that there is, we thank you for being here today. We ask you to lead the way in helping all of us to balance our lives with work and play and rest and activity. We ask you to help us to find our work and to put joy and peace into our work and to return to the joy that you have given us when we stray from this place or take on work that is not appropriate for us. Thank you for walking with us as we explore life on this earth with each other. Amen. So bring your attention back into the room, and happy Labor Day. Enjoy the fruits of your labor and find time to relax with yourself and others. And thank you for all the work you do, most of which nobody even knows about. Thank you.